I've wandered this vast desert for decades, and I've seen a thing or two. I've seen murder, gold, and greedy men. I remember in particular this one man several years back in search of his next score. I remember rolling by an old saloon in Mexico and decided to tumble on it for a while. It was then that I met the Dutchman. I watched as he approached the bar and looked at the man already drowning his sorrows in liquor. Pointing at the man, the Dutchman said,
Hey bartender, I'll have what he's having.
The man at the bar looked up and drunkenly said,
You're a prospector, aren't you?
Why, yes, I am. I'm passing through in search of my next claim.
Well, if you listen to my tale, I tell you the location of a rich gold mine.
A gold mine, you say? Hmm. Well, I'm in no hurry.
I watched the Dutchman get comfortable on the old bar as the drunk at the bar said,
Years ago, my family and I were rich cattle ranchers. We owned thousands of cattle and thousands of acres of land. But my father wanted more wealth, and regrettably, so did the rest of us. With the thought of gold on our minds, we traveled north into Arizona. My father had learned of a great gold vein in the superstitious mountains. What he didn't tell us was the fate of those who came before us, looking for gold in these mountains. It took us weeks, but we finally did find the gold. After we had established the mine and began to dig up enough gold, we packed up the burro and made our way back home. We continued to travel back and forth from our home to those accursed mountains for years. It was then, in 1848, as we made our way back home. Well, it happened. As we were traveling back to our home, we heard their war cries in the distance. We ran as fast as we could. It was no use though. Within minutes, they were upon us. They killed my family in front of me. I don't remember how I got away, but all I do remember is the heat of the sun beating down on me and seeing a house in the very distance. I woke to a stranger treating my wounds. He told me I was lucky to be alive, but I know differently. I haven't returned home, and I haven't gone back to those mines. There's too many memories, too painful. Well, if I haven't frightened you off, I'll tell you where the mine is. That is, if your desire for gold is greater than your value of life.
Interested in the Dutchman's answer, I rolled forward. Now I know any sane person would have said the logical answer of no, but his answer surprised me. He said,
Sir, if I wasn't willing to risk my life, I wouldn't be in this line of work.
The drunk, Emmanuel, nodded and wrote down the location of his family's mine. The Dutchman thanked him and walked out. Curious to know the outcome of his strange man, I followed him. I followed him day and night until he got to the superstitious mountains. Since I could not follow him up the mountain, I can only guess at what most likely happened. He was gone for several weeks, so he either was busy celebrating and mining away at his newly discovered gold vein, or the Mexican man's directions were not very clear and he had trouble finding the mine. Either way, the Dutchman succeeded in finding his gold, for he came down the mountain with a heavier bag and a hop in his step. Still curious, and with nowhere better to tumble, I once again followed the Dutchman. He walked for some time until he came to a small shack, barely large enough for himself. He entered, and just before the door closed, I saw the gleam of a fresh golden nugget. From time to time, I'd see the man re-emerge, and sometimes head back towards the mountains. After a few years, I decided to tumble on somewhere new. After all, a tumbleweed is never satisfied staying in one place for too long. I did check on him from time to time. I eventually learned his name was Jacob Waltz. He never married and told no one the location of his mine, not even on his deathbed. I had gotten a wind that the old Dutchman was dying and decided to pay my respects. I managed to sneak into his house and watch as the Dutchman gave a hand-drawn map to 3 of his neighbors. His final words were,
Here, my friends, be merry and good luck.
with that, the Dutchman sighed and grew still. I watched as the 3 neighbors tried to make heads or tails of the map. In the end, they all stole the gold that was hidden under the Dutchman's bed. The Dutchman's ridiculous map has since gone missing, and the mine's specific location died along with Jacob. Since then, I have witnessed countless treasure hunters looking for the Dutchman's mine, many of whom never return. Nevertheless, another hunter always comes and another always fails. They all come with the hope of finding the Dutchman's fortune, but most receive the same fate as Peralta's. Although the Apaches are long since gone, they at least were merciful. This holds untrue for the cruel sun and deadly twisting paths through those mountains. For those of you who are the least bit tempted, think of what Emmanuel asked Jacob. Is your desire for gold greater than the value of your own life?